Patrick. All right. Unfortunately, the statement of Mr. Chan earlier was a bit inaccurate. We're the ones that are holding you from your lunch. So I hope that we can wrap things up in 15 minutes on the topic of sustainability. But before anything else, can I just get a quick introduction done by Colin, Jean, and also by Arlene? And I think the title over there for Jean is already inaccurate because I heard you got promoted. so so yeah, I think the proper introductions will be done. Yeah, Colin, if you could start us off on your end, thank you.
Thanks, Jonas. My name is Colin Steely, and I operate Stratcon.ph. I like to think that we are a energy transition services and solutions company. So everybody says, do you do solar? And I say, we do not do solar because that's highly commoditized and everybody does solar. We look for innovative solutions and technologies working with all sorts of commercial industrial facilities around the Philippines in improving their energy efficiency, their energy usage, and try to help them increase renewable energy into their mix of energy sources.
Hi, my name is Jean Monson. I'm based in Singapore. I am the head of infrastructure at MUFG Bank. So for those of you who don't know, MUFG Bank is a Japanese mega bank. We're one of the largest three. I believe we're the sixth largest bank in the world at the moment from a balance sheet perspective. So how we deploy that balance sheet is by putting it to work in projects. One of the projects that we like very much is infrastructure, and in particular digital infrastructure. So we finance a number of data centers across the region. And very happy to be here today. Thank you, W.Media, for inviting me.
Thank you, Jonas. I'm happy to be here with my two other co-panelists. Can I see a wave of hands from our audience? You're still alive. I think most of them are having their lunch, right? So I am Arlene Romasanta, CIO and Director for the Knowledge and Information System Service of the Department of Environment, not Energy, right? Department of Environment and Natural Resources. So I manage the whole or oversee the whole ICT operations in the department from the central office, regional offices, provinces, and the community offices. So it's a nationwide coverage. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll also kind of introduce myself. So I'm Jonas from the Nomura Research Institute, Singapore, Manila branch. We're also a Japanese company, but specializing on management consultancy, industry research, and so on. Coincidentally, we're doing a topic on MIC investments in the Philippines, and one particular issue is the renewable energy sources that we have. So, as you know, energy in the Philippines is now shifting from what is currently around 60% coal to hopefully 50% renewables. So this is a very, very timely topic. But there are always issues because the timeline of the government is up to about 2040, and I don't think data centers can really wait until 2040 until we reach that capacity. However, I'm guessing the panel may have some ideas on how can we encourage the data centers to come in and say what and say that they're running their data centers with green energy. But first of all, can we ask, I guess, first perhaps Colin or Jean, how do you see the investments for renewable energy in the Philippines, and how can we tie it? Is there a way that we can tie it up with data center development in the country?
Yeah, why don't I have a go at that? So maybe if when we talk about renewable energy, the first thing, and particularly in the context of data centers, right? I think the first thing that I do is always to ask, what type of renewable energy are we talking about? Because it needs to be fit for purpose, right? So running a data center, if we kind of work back from that, running a data center requires stable, reliable, 24/7 energy. uptime is extremely important. It needs to be 99.99999% of uptime, right? Having any sort of downtime, as anyone who's experienced that frustration with scrolling down your phone, trying to refresh something and that not happening. We've all expressed that frustration before. Now imagine if there's an outage, which there was in certain data centers in Singapore, and the government's been very upset with that. So uptime, absolutely critical. And then you ask yourself, what type of renewable energy gives you that uptime? So I would categorize them into two buckets. There's intermittent renewable energy, which are things like wind and solar, because if the wind doesn't blow, the sun doesn't shine, there is no energy, there is no power being generated, right? And then non-intermittent energy would refer to things like geothermal, hydro, and for a very clean new solution that is, you're hearing this everywhere as a renaissance, it's coming back, it's nuclear. Nuclear is carbon-free and 24/7, effectively delivers baseload light power. So I would put them into two buckets. Obviously, there's a nuance to the first bucket being that if you combine that, as Colin knows very well, with energy storage, for instance. So if you combine that with a form of batteries, then you can create a non-intermittent solution out of solar plus something, solar plus batteries, etc. But I think it's important that, in the first instance, what you're trying to solve for, it wouldn't work if you're just attaching it to a solar plant, right? Because you can't run a data center where half of the time when the sun shines, you have power. And then when we go to sleep at night, there's no power. So that's the first thing that I would say. A second thing that I would say is that from a regulation perspective, can the developers who are after who are after renewable energy actually acquire that? And for that, you need, regulation that allows for you to buy the power directly from the producers. In many countries, that's called corporate PPA regime, right? And that allows you to buy something off the grid. And if you have a regime, if you have a stable framework for that, Malaysia has just started looking into it. Surprise, surprise, because of all the data centers that are now coming online. They've just introduced in September CRESS. Which is a CPPA regime. And then the third question is, are you willing to pay for it, which is the cost? Because when you introduce, if you're signing up to a corporate PPA that is off-grid, more likely than not, you're going to have to pay for additional charges, wheeling charges, transmission charges, and all of that. And that adds to the cost. So, there's quite a few things to think about when you're thinking of powering data centers with renewable energy.
That's a very good point, Jean. Colin, is there anything you'd like to add?
I think Jean covered it all. But, for a Philippines spin, I would like to say that the Philippines has an unbundled market, right? And it has a spot market to start with. So it's super competitive. And, unlike the vertically integrated markets or power markets of Indonesia and Vietnam, they are struggling to get more renewable energy online. And a lot of the data centers, providing services to Google or Amazon, they have to meet sustainability targets, right? So we are actually in a very good place here to be able to provide more renewables than in other areas. So deep sea PPAs, which we were talking about, we have that in terms of the Green Energy Options Program here. So you can go to your retail electricity supplier and attain 100% renewable energy if you like. But the only other spin that I would like to put on this is that data centers are given to be critical infrastructure, as you mentioned, but huge energy consumers. So there is an opportunity to change models. For example, sure, you could have a PPA from a large solar plant, but if you're buying kilowatt hour during the day, it's cheaper than buying it at night to get that 100% renewable energy. So why don't you have battery storage behind the meter, for example? Right, prices of batteries are coming down. So I think let's look outside the box. The regulatory environment here in the Philippines is really good to be able to allow for new models to be experimented with. Right, so let's leave it on that. I think we could explore different opportunities here and think outside the box. The Philippines might be an interesting place to see more growth because of that.
All right, Arlene, you'd like to add?
Thank you, Jonas. I would agree with both of my panel member. There are a lot of consideration, right? So for the Philippines, as we are located in the Pacific Ring of Fire, all of this renewable energies has to be tapped, and we have vast sources of this, no, from geothermal to wind, hydro, and solar. But those considerations mentioned by other panelists are really the real thing, no, because what we want in our data center is the reliability, no, and then of course energy security, the supply. Should it be a stable supply, or should it be intermittent all of the time? So that's what we need to assess. And of course, with the emerging, of course, what we are facing right now is on the climate change resiliency, right? So when we talk about climate change, we still have to consider the wind, the the flooding, the water. So all of these things. So if we have more rainy days, how could we store energy from the sun and from the wind? Yeah, right? It's not, we cannot get the hydropower from floods. So what we need is a real hydropower from our water sources. So those are the reality checks that we need to do as a CIO and as a data center practitioner. So in terms of investments, I would also agree that it's a huge upfront cost for all of us in putting all of these renewable energies into action. No, we will be providing services to our clients, like in the government. We have to ensure that our services are online 24/7. So those are the considerations that we need to make, because if we want to have our services accessible all the time, then we need to have a reliable source. So later on, I will share what would be my strategy as a CIO on how do we adopt renewable energy in the data center. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So Colin mentioned the Green Energy Option programs. It's part of the Renewable Energy Act, way back in 2009, which says if you're a contestable supplier, meaning that your consumption is 100 kilowatts, if I'm correct, from
500.
yeah, 500.
500.
500. But for GEOP, I think it's 100 kilowatts.
Yeah, that's correct.
So you are able to contract renewable energy from suppliers that can produce renewable energy. But the challenge in GEOP is availability and supply. So in the past few months, we've had discussions actually with energy players on green energy availability, and what they're telling us is that they're building them, but it can't come in too soon. I mean, it'll probably be a 2 to 3 year wait. What can you suggest to our data center colleagues on possible collaboration, or probably like a deal that can be done with these energy companies to speed it up, or probably like you have some considerations done? Is there also a similar experience outside the Philippines for that kind of collaboration? A data center working with an energy company to really directly contract solar power, not solar power, a renewable energy facility.
Yeah, I think so the big tech guys, right, which are the likes of Amazon, Google, Microsoft, etc., are huge users of this. They do this already. Over 50% of the corporate PPAs globally are already signed by big tech. So they're doing this. And in fact, they are the ones who are driving the need to enter into direct agreements with the power producers so that they can purchase this to meet their net zero obligations. And as we have just heard, from Patrick, we'll just be using more and more power with the growth of AI and new tech coming on. The one thing I would add away from, just away from renewable energy is that obviously is speaks to the type of energy we're using. But one of the fundamentally what we should be doing is reducing the energy usage. So efficiency, so moving towards efficiency is actually trying to make our systems more efficient. And, we see this at different levels. The first level would be the decarbonization or the efficiency of the hardware and the software itself. So in a data center, if you are using the most efficient chips, that in itself gives you a lot of electrical efficiency, energy efficiency. The second is, I think there was a lot of talk of cloud. There's cloud versus on-site premise data centers. Studies have shown, AWS commissioned this to prove this data point. It is 80% more energy efficient to use cloud than using on-site premises. And the reason for that is not just the design, the chips that you're using, which is the top of the line chips, but it's also coming from utilization, because the utilization of cloud runs at 70-80% level versus at on-premise, 15% or something. So you'll get it, you're utilizing more of it, it's more efficient. And obviously the facilities, right? So things like cooling solutions, liquid cooling, and new and innovative solutions that actually can help to save energy would make a huge difference in terms of consuming less energy. And that's, obviously before you talk about the type of energy. So the one thing I would say to everyone is, the primary focus should be on consuming less energy before we think about the type of energy that we use.
That's a good point. Thank you for that. Actually, in my opinion, in DENR, in the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, right now we are considering doing a feasibility for our own services, for our facility, and we are looking at a combination or a hybrid setup for our systems, and that would be the rooftop solar panels that can complement the use of existing power grids. So it means that we can have less consumption or maybe less bill on top of the existing power grid, and then a combination of our energy storage system. So at least the systems or the services will still be reliable because of the storage that we can use during times that the existing rooftop solar panel would not be as effective because of the weather. So that could be a combination. Plus, of course, the cloud subscription. So I believe with what Jean has shared, that cloud subscription actually generate cost savings for all of us, because we can through cloud we lessen the maintenance of power and cooling in our ICT assets and infrastructure, and we can also make use of green material and green machines and green procurement. We can practice that so that we can also generate lesser and lesser energy or consume lesser energy in our data centers. Thank you.
Colin, you'd like to add more?
Well,
because it's energy efficiency that Jean mentioned first. You're my to-go guy for that, actually.
Certainly. I mean, that's how we got started, as Jonas knows. We were an ESCO, and now we're an energy transition company because we have battery storage, and we're also working with a French technology called SurgETP, which is transformer protection. If anybody knows what happened in London last week, Heathrow Airport went down because there was a substation explosion, right? So we provide a technology that actually is the only technology with a €6 million liability insurance that can prevent fires and prevent explosions, right? So there are all these solutions around. But coming back to DENR, the government has a massive undertaking. They have to meet a 15% savings in energy consumption, right? So they are getting a lot of pressure from the current administration in having to meet those targets. And good luck.
Well, in terms of that, we have really multiple number of projects right now, and we're working on, of course, our it is to conserve, protect, and manage the environment and natural resource. And we partnered with multilateral organizations like JICA, ADB, UN, and working on multiple programs like national greening, no, to at least let our environment cool off, no, because right now our one of our greatest challenges is the forest fire as well, no. Not only happens in California but also in the Philippines and around the globe. So the climate change is really one thing and very challenging for all of us, not only in the Philippine government. So we have water related programs as well, and waste management, which can be converted into energy as well. Thank you.
All right. I understand there's so much things that we can really talk about renewable energy. Unfortunately, I'm constrained to our time, and I don't want to keep you again for your lunch. But as a final word, I guess if you had a wish list for the data center industry, and then relating to the topic of sustainability and renewable energy, what would be your ask from our data center colleagues on what they can do to kind of encourage more investment in this field, collaborating with the energy players for more green energy, I guess, for them here in the Philippines?
I'll let me be the first. Okay, so I would like to encourage our developers and producers to at least look at the aspect that you can develop a technology that would be economical and would offer different options now for the data centers to adapt to, because we all know that it is investment intensive, and there is no, for now, I think there's no 100% study how we can return our investments yet from all of this renewable energy. So we might as well work together, no? And the government is here as well to work with you, the private sector, and other players in the renewable energy. Thank you.
Perhaps Colin and then Jean for the last word.
Sure. I mean, I think, Jean, you said 50% of DPPAs, right? CPPAs come from the data center world. And that is an incredibly huge driving force in developing these activities in every single country in the region. So I would say continue doing that. Continue the pressure, put pressure on government to get more renewables online. So continue that work.
Okay. Jean?
And picking up what Colin said about innovation, I think staying on innovation, that's something that the data center operators and the community should also look into, because, and I'll give you an example, just because I've come from Singapore. Singapore released a tropical data center methodology, which is a first of its kind in the world, and obviously applies to all of us here because we live in hot and humid climates. But, data centers like dry and cooled, cool air. So we have a unique challenge. One of the interesting recommendations there was actually around the temperature. For the longest time, we ran data centers in Singapore at 22 degrees. That's it. Now, that is on an average day, 10 degrees cooler than our natural temperature in Singapore. So imagine how much energy you're consuming. So Singapore last year, when it released this, they decided to push the industry to increase the temperatures within the halls. The industry was very resistant at first, but with every degree that you increase your data halls, you can actually make a energy saving of 2 to 5%. A couple of data centers in Singapore have already done this under strict supervision, together with the Singapore government and all the community, and it's been very effective. So we're trying to raise the temperatures in Singapore data centers up to 26 degrees. They're run at 25, 26 now. Those are for the brave-hearted. We do know some of the industry who still resist this because they say, oh no, I still want to stick to 22 degrees. But the energy savings from just, these tiny movements have been significant. So I just want to urge everyone to think about innovation and innovative ways that you can drive sustainability in the data center industry.
All right. And with that, I close the panel. Thank you very much. And I yield back to Patrick. Thank you.